So adjacent angles we know already. There are two angles that have a common
vertex
and a common ray. Okay, we know that those are side-by-side angles. The common vertex and a common ray. Your vertex is that middle point. Okay. This common ray is that middle ray that both angles share. Okay, so it's basically kind of dividing both of those angles in two. So that means that angle X is adjacent to angle Y, and then angle Y is also adjacent to angle X. Okay? You don't know anything about those measures, you just know that they're side-by-side angles. But vertical angles, we do know about their measures. Vertical angles are a pair of non-adjacent angles formed when two lines, what happened? What happened? When two lines cross, or mathematically they intersect. When two lines intersect. We know that those vertical angles are congruent, meaning that they have the same value. Okay. So you've got an example of two intersecting lines. You've got angle X and angle Y, and they tell me that X equals Y because they are vertical. Okay. In this next example, it says to find the value of D. So are these vertical angles?
Yeah.
Yes. So that means we can set them equal to each other in order to solve for D. Okay. So we can set up an equation. So I would have 4D plus 10 equals to 42. You're not adding them together because they are equal to each other. So you set them equal to each other. Okay? A lot of students today have been making the mistake of adding them, doing 4D plus 10 plus 42. But then you have nothing to equal them to. They're vertical angles, meaning they have the same measure, so you set them equal to each other and solve for X. Okay. So how would I solve for X, or solve for D here? What? Minus 10 on both sides, right? So then you're left with a 4D on the left. And what on the right? 32. Now how do you solve for D? Divide both sides by 4. So D equals 8. Okay. Could you check and see if you did that correctly? You could. You know that this has to equal 42. So 4 times 8 is 32. 32 plus 10 is 42, so it checks. Okay. Questions on that? Okay. What about complementary angles? We know that those are two angles whose measures add up to 90 degrees. Good. So, looking at this first example, here you have a set of adjacent angles. They are right next to each other. You've got angle X and angle Y. Together, those angles make a 90 degrees, a right angle. Okay. You can also have complementary angles that are not adjacent, meaning they're not meeting each other, not side by side. If you know for a fact, which we do, that X plus Y equals 90, then you could solve for one or the other. So normally I would say, okay, X equals 50, here's Y. Both of these are complementary angles, solve for Y. And you can do that. Okay. So they don't always have to be right next to each other like this. If you are given the facts that they are complementary, then you know that they equal to 90 and you can solve for them. Alright, find the value of B. So I've got 2B plus 6 and 22. So how could I solve for B?
2B plus 6 equals 22.
No, not quite. Good try. Am I going to equal them to each other? No, because together they make 90. So you're going to add these two and set them equal to 90. Okay? Vertical angles you're going to set equal to each other. But these are complementary. We know that they equal 90. So it's going to be 2B plus 6 plus 22 equals 90. Okay? Does Does everybody see that? What do I have to do first before I can solve? Combine like terms. Which is what?
6 and 2.
Okay. So when they add those, what do you get?
28.
Now what?
Subtract 20 on both ends.
So you're left with 2b equals 62.
62.
And then how do you solve for b?
Divide by 2.
Divide both sides by 2.
Divides by 2.
So b equals
1.
So complementary, you're going to set equal to 90. You're going to add the 2 and set them equal to 90. Supplementary are two angles whose measures add up to what? 180 degrees. So here, again, I've got another example of adjacent and non-adjacent angles. But I know that x plus y equals 180, so I know for a fact that these are both supplementary angles. Okay, so you could solve for either of the two. Here I've got an example where they want me to find what r is. So I've got 3r plus 9 and r plus 31. So what type of equation could I set up to solve for r? Add them together and then equals 180. So you have 3r plus 9 plus r plus 31. So you're taking both angles and adding them together and setting them equal to 180. What do you need to do first? Combine like terms. So what's one set of like terms?
3R.
What's another set?
9, 31.
9.
Okay. So 3r plus 1r equals
4R.
9 plus 31.
40.
How do you solve for r first? Subtract 40 from both sides. Then what?
Divide by 4.
Divide by 4.
So r becomes
10. I don't know.
35. I actually have to do the math and not just take a guess.
Yeah.
4 times 10 would be 40, not 1.
I mean, never mind.
I thought it was 20.
Questions? So, when is the only case that you are setting both angle measures equal to each other?
Supplementary.
Only when they're vertical angles, because those measures are congruent. So if they're complementary or supplementary, you're adding the two together and setting equal to either 90 or 180. But if they're vertical angles, you're setting each measure equal to each other. Okay? Questions? All right. If you can actually work with whoever you're sitting with,